Sweet. So we are back in Ultraflex, and today I kind of just wanted to do a little bit more of like an informative training one. I feel like I've not done that for a while now. Today I've got my top line session, which is essentially like a upper chest, shoulder and arms top up day, and this fits in my split. So I've got push, pull, rest, and then I do my top line like top up day, and then legs, and then rest, and I got 2 rotations of that. The reason we put this session in from the start of this off season basically was because as like a complete physique, it was my top line that was missing. So that was like the lagging area when it came to being a competitive bodybuilder, so to speak. It just boiled down to my arms were weak. The sort of like pop and fullness in my delts and my chest is where I've always lacked, and as I diet, they're the first areas that will start to dwindle away as well. It's just always worked like that. So we thought putting a specific session in to work on that would allow me to obviously make improvements in the off season, but as we transition into prep as well, it will mean that there's a little bit more volume focus there. There's a lot more movements for me to progress and stay strong at. And obviously, as you diet down, if you can stay strong, you're giving the muscle that you built reason to stick around, and that's kind of like the notion behind staying strong through the prep is going to be to give the muscle a bit of a reason to stick around. So today we're going to go through this session. I'll sort of break down the movements and kind of like how and why I'm doing them, and then just the importance behind and when potentially to implement like a day to work on your weaker points, because obviously this is something that I've only just done. I haven't been implementing like weak point days for a long period of time. If you think about it, I've been training for like 5 or 6 years. It's just the last sort of 6 months that I've done anything like this. So we'll break down sort of like when and why. But first, I'll sort of give you a little bit of a rundown of my logbook, how I set my logbook up, and just the info that I put on there, because everyone does it differently. Some people like to use like the preset logbooks, which have got like, you know, like the boxes and the tick boxes and all that shit. It says your training partner and what you had for tea and all that bollocks. I don't do that. I just use a notepad. I've actually got a pink marble notepad simply because it was the only one left in the shop, and I was like, I needed a new notepad. I'd ripped like 7 pages out of Hannah's book, and I was like, for fuck's sake, I just need a new notepad. So I've got a pink marble one. It's actually quite good. But in terms of how I set it up, so I'll have the date and the session at the top. I'll have the time that I'm training at, because believe it or not, the time that you train at in the day when you're like quite routine and regimented, it makes a difference. Like I trained legs at like 9 a.m. the other day. Bear in mind it's 10 to 2 now, so this is the normal time I train, like 1:30, 2 o'clock. Trained legs at 9 o'clock the other day, and I was literally on the floor nearly being physically sick, just because at that time of the morning that level of intensity was ridiculous. Like I'd had 1 less meal, and my body just couldn't hack it, and it was because I'd trained at a different time, and I've trained religiously at this time now for probably over a year, and it just absolutely ruined me. So the time you train at is important, and it may have a reflection on your logbook numbers. I then say how many meals I've eaten, because again the food you've eaten makes a difference. And then I put my scale weight as well, because again on movements like pressing movements, pushing movements, your body weight is quite correlatory to your levels of strength. So today's actually my highest weigh-in of the off season. I'm 131.7 kilos, and that is why I'm sat here sweating just talking to the camera, because I feel so heavy it hurts at the minute. And but that is obviously the nature of the off season, and this is the best I've ever looked at this weight as well, so I can't exactly complain. And I am wearing 2 layers for some. I just like sweating in the gym, so I'm wearing 2 layers. It is what it is. But then in terms of the movements themselves, I literally write the movement, I write the rep ranges, and then I will put like a little line so that I know. I just write down whatever I get in the session next to it, so I know what rep range I'm working in. And I always have like the little, is that like a bookmark? A bookmark. Yeah. I have the bookmark on the last session so that I can just like flick back to it, nice and efficient. And then any information on like the actual movement itself, I'll write next to it. So like the standing cable side raise, I put plus 10p because I do 10 partials after each rep. Anything to do with like, for example, the prime kit, Like sometimes I load specific settings, so I'll write them down on there. I'll write down any pauses, any stretches, shit like that. That all gets written down in the book, and then yeah, just crack on with it from there. But I've had specifically a lot of clients and a couple of people as well, when I'll just like post a picture on my logbook, they'll ask how I set it out. So I thought, if we break that down, at least you know how I set it out, and hopefully it might help you set your logbook out a little bit more efficiently, so that obviously you can get a little bit more out of it when it comes to data and when it comes to using it to progress in the future. But for now, I'm gonna go for a walk, get warm. I'm absolutely roasting, but I still go for a walk anyway, just because it's part of the routine, and then we'll get into the session. So with this one first, as much as it's like an incline machine, I'm treating it like a high incline. So what I'm trying to do is, I'll put the seat like a couple of notches up, and then, so it's sort of, as opposed to it being like an incline here, I'm more sort of aiming in between where a shoulder press and an incline would be. And what that's allowing me to do is sort of like hit not only my shoulders, but also like my upper chest. And that kind of like I say, that top line where I want that bubbliness, that's where this is gonna hit really well. So this session starts with this as the high incline, and then the other session starts with, I should know this, it starts with another high incline press. Where is that gone? It starts with another high incline, that one starts with the strive press. Yeah, fucking hell, that's bad that, isn't it? I don't even know my own session. Literally, yeah, prep rain started and I'm like 30 weeks out still. I always like to start, or at least warm up with, not only like I've done a fly there, and I'll do some warm-up sets on the actual press. What I like to do is a couple of sets of rows as well, just because for me I want to like mobilize the whole of this joint, like my shoulder joint, and that's going into like my rear delts as well, so the whole area. So I feel like some rows always allow me to really, especially some upper back focus rows, they allow me to open up sort of like the whole of my clavicular line, and then around the back as well. Especially as I get deeper in the off season, things get quite immobile, and it starts to be a little bit more difficult to sort of open up range of motion. So I like to, like for example, even on pull day, I'll do some flies, some chest flies, things like that, just to allow for myself to get fully warm. So I think on push days, definitely it's worth doing a couple of sets of rows or something of the sort to really warm everything up and get ready to work in every plane of motion.
Hold there. Up. Yours. Yes. 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 Yours. Come on. Come on. Lock it up. Come on. That's all you. That's all you get. Nice. I didn't want to say him going like this.
Squeeze out of there. So on this, well, pretty much any press that I like start with, I'll always really take my time warming up, because my first press I can get quite a decent amount of load on it, but to go straight in on that would be obviously dangerous. So I work my way up here. I go 1 plate, 2 plates, 4 plates, 5 plates, and I'll work on 6. And what I do is like taper the reps down as I go up. So my first set with 1 plate, I'll do like 10 reps. Then I'll do an 8 rep warm up, then a 6, then a 4, then I can work. So it allows me to work my way up in the load without like fatiguing myself too much. It's quite easy to warm up too much, get to the top set and be like, fucking hell, I've just done a full session of warm ups. So that's one thing you don't want to do is, as much as you want to be as safe as possible while you press, find a way to do that without taking away from your actual presses. Because if you've done that on your first exercise, for example, there's a good chance that everyone after that in the session, on if it was a push day, for example, and I had 2 or 3 more presses, you know, I'd be fucked for the whole session. So you've got to find a way to warm your way up by getting through the load comfortably, but not eating into your actual top set, which hopefully I've not done. We'll find out now, but hopefully I've not. nearly 2 reps up, 1.5, but it's better than last week. Fucking hard as spit getting them on. Stupid things. Oh. On this as well, the reason that we use a high incline press as opposed to like doing an incline press and a shoulder press, for example, is because one, I do them on my push sessions, so this allows me to hit a different angle, like the in between the shoulder and the chest press. It allows me to hit that angle on this day, and as well, you get the same, or you don't get the same, but you get a lot out of one movement when you're using it for that high incline. So, for example, if I was to do a shoulder press and a chest press today to hit that top line, I'd have to do 4 sets, for example, because it'd be 2 exercises. So I get a lot out of 2 sets here, which means I'm recovered for my next push session. Because as much as this session's now with my split, it has to fit from not only a training point of view, but from a recovery point of view. So if I was to put a shoulder press, a chest press in here, there's a good chance I wouldn't recover before I got back round to push, because it's only in 2 days. So 2 days I'm back pushing again. So it has to be, you have to be able to recover from it. At the same time, it has to be something that's not going to take away from like the progression route of my push sessions, because if I had a chest and shoulder press here as well, and I'm running closer and closer to maximum capacity on chest pressing and shoulder pressing every 2 days, there's a good chance that I'm going to run that course pretty quick and just get fried. Probably need to deload sooner, take time off sooner, or just run into stalls and progress. Whereas because it's a different angle completely, it allows me a good run at some progress for a long period of time. D-handles on this, basically for that wrist freedom, is a game changer. I'm not saying like they're built badly, but they do restrict your wrists quite a lot, and just that freedom of the wrist allows you to angle it essentially to like the perfect contraction for you, which is a nice touch. On this as well, we're going to do the lighter set first, so we're going to do a 12 to 15, then a 10 to 12. The reason behind that essentially is because there's a lot of chance to get carried away with a movement like this. It's quite small and specific, this movement. So to put the heavier set first would mean, especially only second in the session, like there's still a lot in the tank to really fucking send it if you want to. And that can normally lead to the movement being done like extremely inefficiently and not getting a lot out of it, because this is a movement where like the contraction itself and the execution of it matters a lot. And you know, without that being right, there's a good chance you're not going to get a lot out of the movement. So we'll put the lighter set first, get what we can out of it from like a contraction standpoint, and then on the back off set, or essentially the heavier set, even though it's still the back off, we put a little bit more load on, but at the same time my execution is like really well cued in, so I can get more out of it basically, and there's less risk of injury, that too. Normally now we'd have the, just broke that, put it back together. Normally now we'd have the prime cable laterals, but someone's using them and this won't take away from that movement, so I'm just going to bring it forward because I don't want to be waiting around for equipment, as long as I like, note it in my logbook. That's another thing that you could note in your logbook as you go along. Like if you're obviously strapped for time, which a lot of people are when it comes to training, you can't be waiting for certain things and certain orders. Just make a note of it in your logbook, like, oh, this came one before the laterals today, you know, this might increase at a bit of a better rate today and the laterals might increase at a slower rate today, but I know it's because they maybe got swapped round. So just little things like that to note in your logbook so you don't kind of get confused as to why things are happening. You can look back and pretty much see exactly what's happening and why. 5 pounds more than I thought it was. Done a little bit more than I thought I did by accident there. I'm not complaining. Fighting hard for one fucking rep. So I know this, a lot of people do this as like a cross-body movement, and I do in another session, or I have done in the past, but at the minute I'm doing this with the cables just either side of me, and it's different, but it really does replicate how you would do like a dumbbell side raise, for example, but with a set of cables. But more than anything, like, there's no reason why I do it this way as opposed to cross-body or anything like that. It's just another variation of the movement. It's like doing the Atlantis incline versus the Nautilus one. Which one's better? It's like they both do 99% of the same job. It's just a little bit different, and when things stall and run out in terms of progress, you know, switching the movement up a little bit might be beneficial from that perspective. So that's why I do this. Just before anyone asks, oh, what's the benefit of doing that over than crossbody, I haven't got a scientific answer for you. It just feels good. with them partials, they weren't added in for, well, they were only added in a couple of weeks ago, and the reason we added them in was just to add to the intensity of the session, like to give me a little bit more work to do per muscle group, as like for my side delts here. I don't like log them or progress them or anything, I just try and get 10 partial reps out, which makes the set a little bit harder and pushes me a little bit further on a movement like this, which can be quite hard to take to failure and take all the way there, so that adds a little bit to it. Fuck. Not fun then. Especially when you're used to taking a set to failure, or as close to as possible. Then you realise you've got to do 10 partials. Not fun. This is one of them where I looked at the logbook and I thought, I don't think I did that. Like, this is one of them where the logbook number not scares you, but you think, did I really fucking do that? So now I've got to try and beat it. So we'll see if I did or not. I guess I did. I do 2 sets facing the stack and then 1 set facing away from the stack. That's why I warmed up by doing a set facing away and a set facing the stack. And I'll be brutally honest, I haven't got a clue why it's programmed like that. Cuba's just done 2 sets facing and then 1 set facing away. I imagine it's because we're loading different ranges or different parts of the biceps full range of motion by facing it and facing away. Feels good doing it this way, but I don't know the exact reason why. Biceps is one of them which I've been that person before, like launching weight round and probably not getting as much out of the movement, but moving a lot more weight, a lot more reps, a lot more sets. And since I've scaled it back and actually understood how to contract my bicep, and then therefore by taking my sets to failure whilst contracting my bicep, I'm actually, you know, taking my bicep to failure. Since I've learned how to do that, I've actually managed to grow my arms, which has been the biggest problem for me for like since I started bodybuilding, was trying to have bigger arms. And since I've actually worked on the execution of the movement, I've been able to grow them. So this is one of those times where people are talking about, oh, if you're not intense in the gym, it doesn't matter, like you're not going to be able to progress. I agree, but you have to match that with execution. If you're as intense as any, like more intense than anyone in here, but your execution's dog shit, you are not going to be able to progress in terms of building muscle, because you're not using the right muscles to be able to do so. So you have to match intensity and execution to get the most out of the session. That's something that I learned the hard way, especially with arms, because I used to tag them on to the end of other sessions, and because I was so intense, by the end of it I was just ruined. And that's where I feel like maybe because I could never connect with my arms, they needed a bit more specific work to be able to grow them. But it's something I'll probably touch on after the session is only focus on growing your arms if they're the only thing that needs to catch up. Don't go around trying to grow your arms if you're small everywhere else. Like, you just therefore need a training split which is overall and hits everywhere. Whereas I think when you get a little bit more advanced, you can start to pinpoint and specify your training a bit more, which is kind of like what happened with me over the past few months. Triceps is another one that I struggled with, because as I got stronger and stronger at them, what I found was that like my elbows started taking a beating, and like I was getting bad elbow pain just off tricep work. But since I've started to be a little bit more accurate with a lighter load, it's allowed me to take the stress off like my elbows and stuff by not having to lift as heavy. But I'm actually progressing my triceps more now, because as much as I'm using a lighter load, I'm still progressing that load, and I'm being more accurate with like the movement itself, and therefore getting a better connection using more of the actual tricep muscle to do that. So I'm actually managing to grow my arms more by using less of a load but being more accurate. We've got an AJ Morris cameo. He just jumped in. Touch wood. This is the first session I've had triceps in that I've had no elbow pain for probably over a month now. So at least I know being more accurate with my sets is working, because I now no longer have the pain and my arms are still growing. That's job done on that session. So it literally, it's not the biggest session, it's not the most taxing session, like as opposed to if I was doing legs or pull or something like that, but like for me it's so necessary to make the improvements that I need to, that I'll put what I would put into a leg session or a pull session into this, because of how much I know I need to bring this area up. So that's why this session's quite an important one to me at the minute. It's probably not my favourite, but it's one which it would be very easy to neglect this session because of how easy it is, or how easy it could be, but the whole point is making it as hard as possible. Accuracy in the movements, intent in the movements, and then obviously just intensity as a whole, on the whole level, being present actually in the gym, not getting distracted. Like, these are all things that I think about on the way to this session, because there's no way after 6-8 months of trying to bring this area up, my top line of my arms, that I'm going to get beat and my feedback be, oh, you need more arms and you need more top line. Like, I'd be upset if that was my feedback, because of how much opportunity I've had to improve it, and I'm making sure that I capitalise on that opportunity. So that's kind of what we're doing here. But we'll finish up, sit down and just have a quick chat. So we just thought we'd come out here to finish it off, because it's absolutely roasting in there and it's quite loud as well, and as much as you can hear me, I can't hear myself, so I don't even know what I'm saying to you. So it's easier to box it off out here. But yeah, that was obviously the first kind of informative one I've done for a while, and I thought it would be good just to take you through that session, because a lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, you know, when people say it, a lot of people have asked me this and you think, oh, fuck off, you're joking. A couple of people, mainly my clients, have asked me why I've implemented this like top line and arm session, and what the reason behind it was. So I thought it would be a good one to go through, it would be a good one to like cover as a whole. And like I said at the start, the main reason behind it is just because it was where I was lacking in my physique from a competitive standpoint. But one thing I wanted to touch on before everyone goes away and starts putting in specific arm days or calf days because their arms and calves are small, like, just remember that this was implemented quite late on in my serious training. Like, I've been running a push-pull legs for a good few years now before this, because essentially I needed to grow everywhere. And I think a lot of people would jump into something like this a little bit too soon, because it's quite a trended thing within like the higher rank bodybuilding at the minute. Like, obviously I've taken this from a much higher level of bodybuilders that I watch and take inspiration from and things like that, and obviously Cuba's implemented it for me, but he only implemented it when I was ready for it. And I think a lot of people would do something like this before they're even ready for it. You know, if you're trying to just grow muscle as a whole, having a day specific to such a small area may not be beneficial for you, and you would get a lot more out of running something which allows you to hit muscle groups more often, whether that be push-pull legs, upper, lower, you know, a variation of them, but allowing for a little bit more frequency in terms of when you're training body parts. It's only when things are becoming very noticeable and a little bit more advanced from areas that are lacking that you should implement something like this. So I don't want people to think that, you know, I've always done this or anything like that. It's more so something that I've implemented as and when I've needed to. And we thought that going into my first competitive year as an open bodybuilder next year, this was going to be the thing that sort of allowed me to come in a lot more complete and not have areas which were shining and others which weren't. You know, I want a more complete look, because that's what I feel like would stand well at the minute in the UK bodybuilding scene is that complete bodybuilding look. So that's kind of what I want to bring, and if that means taking emphasis off areas that are strong for me, like, you know, my legs, my glutes have always been a strong point for me. I've never struggled to gain size there, so to speak, but my arms and my chest, the top of my chest and my shoulders have. So having an extra day in between me hitting legs, like I only hit legs once every 4 sessions at the minute, having that extra day is merited, because this area needs to catch up with my lower half. So yeah, I thought obviously I would just touch on that to rationalise why I do it, but hopefully everyone enjoyed the breakdown of the session and whatnot. And if you've got any questions on any of the movements or why it's set up like it is or anything like that, just drop them in the comments and I'll obviously give as much of an explanation as I can there, or if it's something I can cover in another video, I will. But thank you for watching. Obviously I'll be trying to get as many of these out as possible now, the informative stuff, the sort of day in the life fun stuff, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, thank you for watching. Obviously like, comment and subscribe and all that if you liked it. If you don't, then let me know constructively. But yeah, I'll see you in the next one.